it over to Luke. He's got a few words to say.
Yeah, I mean, thank you all for coming, and I guess we'll do introductions of the candidates as they come up for their grilling, if you will. I feel like we're on the Sunday morning show here, but one thing I wanted to say before we begin is, unfortunately, this month we lost a longtime member of the RBA, Dale McCarty. Dale was a longtime agent at Viveris Insurance in town. I'm sure many of you knew Dale. He was a founder of the RBA, along with folks like George Cardono and Mr. Goff and Roger Peralt. And you know, we really want to honor Dale with respect to the work he put in. He was the type of guy who never said no to people and was really always looking out for the business people in town, and did a lot to foster the goals of the RBA. So that being said, I just wanted to maybe have just a quick moment of silence for Dale and think of him. Thanks. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
All right. So just get into, we'll take a moment before we call you guys up to go over the format for tonight's event. Basically, the format is designed, question and answer format. You guys are hopefully familiar with it by now. We're going to call up two groups this evening, 4 candidates each, and we'll have opening statements, 2 or 3 minutes each, and then we'll go into a question and answer segment, and then at the end of that segment you'll be allowed to have a closing statement as well. If you tend to expound for a period of time, with 30 seconds to go, we'll give you a warning sound, which, do we have a warning sound? All right. And then, perfect.
Very sophisticated.
And then if you hear that again, that your time is up, and we ask you to please refrain from speaking further, so the other candidates will have a chance to talk. Moderators are in front of you. Luke Travis, Leslie Govea, Mike Castro will be taking turns asking you questions. All of the questions have been submitted by the RBA members or citizens of the town. They've been screened by the board, and we'll randomly select questions to ask you throughout the evening. And then we ask the audience to refrain from making any comments during the event. So with that said, I think we're ready to begin.
Great.
So first up, if we could have Mr. Cute, Mr. Bertozzi, or sorry, Mr. Cute for Town Moderator, Mr. Edward Bertozzi Jr. for Planning Board, Mrs. Laura Schwall for Town Clerk, and Mr. David Perry for Stormwater.
So this is a little bit different than last year. We were facing each other last year, so
yeah,
which is fine. We can all see one another, but we're facing the camera, so that's good.
Just facing Jeremy.
That's right.
Yep. So I think Leslie's going to start with the first question for. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we'll actually, before we get into questions, we'll start with an opening statement. Why don't we start by going right down the row? So, Mr. Cute, if you'd like to make an opening statement.
Thank you. My appreciation to the Rehoboth Business Association for having us here again. Good evening, everybody. I'm Bill Cute, Town Moderator, and it's hard to believe that I'm here tonight speaking to you as I seek my 9th term in the office. It's hard to believe that it doesn't seem that long ago, back in 2007, that I was asked by a group of citizens to run because they were concerned about the tone and the atmosphere that existed in our town meeting. And I ran on a very simple platform, and that platform is that if I was elected, that I'd do everything in my power to restore order and civility to the thing that makes the decisions for our town. I think, in all honesty, that over the 8 years that I've been in the office, that we've been very successful in doing just that. And I've had a lot of help. I've worked under 2 fantastic town clerks, Kathy Conti, Laura Schwall, and as I've said on several occasions, the real heroes of the job have been you, the people of Rehoboth, because I just clarified the expectations, and you lived up to them. And that's the major reason why I think that the atmosphere in our town meeting is as healthy as it's been. And that's my promise, and my platform will not change. And if you continue to return me to that office, that's what I'll run on. That's my promise, that I will continue to strive to bring order and civility to the thing that makes our town go. So, it's nice to be here, and thanks again to the RBA for having us.
Thank you. Mr. Bertozzi?
Yes, my name is Ed Bertozzi, and I'm on the planning board. I came to Rehoboth with my family in the early 1980s, and very soon thereafter went on the planning board, so it's hard to believe, but it's been over 30 years. So my wife and I raised our 4 children here in Rehoboth, and they all graduated from Rehoboth schools and got a good education. And during the time I've been on the planning board, the population of the town has nearly doubled. So what I've learned in my time on the planning board is that the people who live in Rehoboth have invested a tremendous amount here in our town. Their primary asset, our primary asset of most of us, is our home. And I would even speak to the fact that businessmen have invested a tremendous amount. The businessmen who are here are mostly small businessmen. That is to say, the businesses are small, they're not small. And people came here, people have come to this town because it's attractive. They want it to remain attractive. They want it to be well governed. They want it to be governed economically. And, you know, to get good value for their tax dollars. Basically, they have so much tied up in here, they want to stay here for the rest of their lives, and they want the town not to suffer any damage from improper development and that sort of thing. This is what I've learned from people who have turned out to planning board meetings. And as for myself, I agree with them. And I think honesty is very important. Where I lived before in Providence and Pawtucket, it's too bad everybody wasn't as honest as they are here. Because honesty, you got to have honesty. And you got to treat people absolutely fairly. No favors. Everybody gets treated exactly the same. They know where they stand. We abide by the rules and the bylaws that the townspeople have voted in. And I will continue to do that if I'm reelected. Thank you.
Schwall?
Thank you, Rehoboth Business Association, Rehoboth Now for filming, and the attendees for the pleasure of being here this evening at your candidates' night. When I first became your town clerk, I pledged to make the office more accessible to the public, streamline the processes, and whenever possible, reduce costs. Over the past 21 months, I have evaluated and implemented several changes to accomplish these goals. My first was to bring Town Hall down to the Senior Center, and the first Monday of every month I go down and see what I could do to help the seniors between 10:30 and noontime when their delicious meal is served. Online services, I've implemented a credit card, debit card, EFT, and ACH through the online on the website and also at the window at the Town Hall. I've streamlined the meeting posting notice. Committee members and board members have a fillable PDF that they can now use and submit electronically and don't have to come up to Town Hall. Elections, I've extended the polling hours due to comments from residents that it was difficult for, is that me? No, sorry. Okay. If that, I extended the polling hours because they found it difficult to get to the polls when the town election opened at 10 rather than 7 like the state elections. I also implemented a voter registration drive at the high school. Last year I enrolled 25 students, and this year I enrolled 38, and 10 more took mail-in registration forms, so when they turn 18, they'll be voters as well. The census calendar, you've received a census calendar with important dates to help remember town meetings, elections, when your taxes are due, and on the back there was a directory. And I hope it was helpful in making your planning much better during the year. Extended hours, you know, I did a survey on extended hours. As you could tell, several things have been implemented, but some are still on hold due to budgetary issues. And the town meeting records management program and preservation program I'm very proud of. We were able to take 12 locations where our records are stored, and now they're down to 3. And they're organized in boxes and digitized, so when we want to find a file, we go into the computer and locate it. Oh, sorry. So basically, I love what I'm doing. I'd love to do it for a lot longer, and I just want to make the clerk's office more inclusive and accessible. Thank you.
Mr. Perry?
Yeah, it's Dave Perry, and I'm running for Stormwater Officer. This is a job you usually don't run for, you usually run from it. I've got about 18 years' experience with wetlands issues in between 2 towns. And the way I look at it, if I don't run for it and take care of it, who's gonna? So it's not a political office, it's just a functional office, something that has to be done. But it could be abused, and I figure I have enough experience, and don't make it political, and I just take care of business. What it involves is making sure that the town or the people, everybody complies with wetlands, not wetlands regulations, but water quality regulations. It falls somewhere between the planning board and conservation. The town has to every year file an MS4 report. Before I was on board, this is my 3rd, I was appointed once, elected once, this should be my 3rd time. It wasn't filed in a timely manner, and it was a $12,000 fine. That's now increased to $35,000 a day if it's not done. So that's one job I have to do. So far, I've managed to get it done. And then during the year, if there's issues or somebody has what they think is a flooding situation or water quality situation, I run out, take care of it, talk to them, and we work it out. I enjoy doing it. You could put more into it than is necessary, but in this town, because we don't have catch basins and curbing and sidewalks and stuff, most of the water kind of takes care of itself. So there's not a lot to regulate. But as issues come up, we take care of it. One thing I'd like to mention tonight, there's not a lot of public here, and it's unfortunate. The RBA, and thank you for setting this up, you did a great job. And there's a little bit of apathy, you wish more people would show up, but maybe it's a good thing. That tells you that maybe things are running okay. And so you get some incumbents and people have been here before, and maybe they're doing a good job. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to enter into our question and answer part of the night. Again, you'll have 3 minutes to answer each question. You know, don't feel the need to use all 3 minutes. If you finish in 30 seconds, that's okay. But if you need the 3 minutes, feel free to use that as well. So, let's see, who wants to go first?
Well, good evening. It's nice to be with all of you tonight. My first question is going to be for Mr. Q. Mr. Q, what do you think is the biggest opportunity facing Rehoboth now, and how can you assist in fixing it?
That's a very good question, Leslie, and I'm glad. And the answer that I'm going to give you is probably something that you'd be very surprised to hear your town moderator say. I think that one of the biggest things that we can do right now in the town of Rehoboth, and Ed alluded to it in his opening remarks, is the fact that the town of Rehoboth is growing bigger. We're growing in leaps and bounds. We're not the town of 3,000 or 4,000 that we had when I was a kid going to the high school back in the late 60s. We're a town of almost 12,000 people. As moderator, one thing that bothers me is the fact that we can fill Dayton Rehoboth, for every seat in Dayton Rehoboth auditorium for a town meeting, and we still have 90% of our voters in town, eligible voters in town, not there. I really believe that we're at a point in our history, and if you want precedent, it's going on right now. It's going on with the school committee and the people in Dayton and Rehoboth as they're re-examining the regional school agreement. That agreement is a little bit more than 50 years old. The town of Rehoboth has been around a lot longer than that. And I really think that one thing, and I'd be willing to participate in this myself, I think that one thing that we really need to do right now at this point in the history of our town is we need to convene a charter commission to take a look at our town charter, to investigate other options that we might have in terms of governing our town. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying abolish town meeting or abolish the Board of Selectmen or anything like that. All I'm saying is that I think that we're at a point in our history where we just need to take a look at other forms of governance and then come to our own decision as to what's going to happen. You're going to say, well, either the form that we're using right now is the best one for it. Great, you've gone through the process, you've investigated other options, and you've reached that decision. Or, after going through the process, you may come to the realization that with a town growing the way that we are, that maybe there's another option that can make government in Rehoboth better and even more responsive to the people that live there. So I would say, Leslie, that right now is the biggest challenge that's facing our town. I think the time is right for us to be doing this, and as I said, I'll put my money where my mouth is, and I'd certainly be willing to be a member of that commission to investigate those alternatives.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll go along in order here. Let me go to Mr. Bertozzi on the planning board, and I'm going to ask you a question. Do you have any ideas how the town can fund a new town hall or a public safety building, and do you think there's an opportunity to have that happen within the near future? I know it's not within the planning board, but you guys are all town leaders, so we're going to spread the wealth here tonight.
Let's face it, it would require an override and bonding. And under our system of government here, everybody in town, all the registered voters would get a chance to vote on it. And you know, my experience in my years is that the town government can appoint a committee to study a question, and the committee can do a great job of studying the question and getting all the facts and all the figures and numbers and trends and predictions and so forth. And the committee can call in people from all walks of life in the town and get their views and come up with a proposal that seems to make a lot of sense and answer everybody's questions and so forth. And then it goes on the warrant, and at the town meeting, a couple of people stand up and have some questions or are against it, and it fails. So it seems to me the lesson from that is having a committee to come up with a good proposal is about 10% of the work. It's about 10% of the work in getting something done, like a new town hall or whatever. 90% of the work is organizing everybody who you can possibly get to think about it, and if those people are in favor of it, to get them to find 10 of their friends who would be in favor of it. It's all in the organization. That's what I've learned as to how people get things passed.
So given the history of what's happened, if I could follow up.
Yeah.
Given the history of what's happened in the town with respect to the vote on these very issues, do you think it's going to come to a point where there's going to be an OSHA violation action brought, or some catastrophe with the public safety building that's going to force this issue? Do you think that's what might end up happening?
You know, I apologize, but at my age, I've learned that if I don't know the answer, I say I don't know the answer to that.
Right.
I don't know about OSHA. That
Right.
wasn't. I'm a retired lawyer, but that was never my.
Well, I mean,
so I can't answer that. I
a
can't
health
answer
issue.
that.
I mean, right.
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, that's not, the planning board has never looked at that.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, you know, from time to time, as you know too, you're
Yeah.
a native, there have been proposals to acquire certain properties, which as we look back on it now, would have been great deals for the town to have to acquire those properties, and particularly some that were centrally located, where perhaps a town complex could have been built over time, at the appropriate time, when economic times were good and people felt that a few, you know, some additional taxes would be okay. I think the people in town, first of all, they stretch to come here. But they're smart. And I think they recognize a good value. And it's just a question of reaching them, and they're so busy getting them involved in focusing for a bit, and then coming to the conclusion, okay, this is something that will be good for the next 50 years. And it will cost X dollars a year, but we should do it. So I don't think it's going to be a crisis. It's not even a question of a crisis. There could be a crisis and people would say, oh, you town leaders, you screwed up. You let this crisis happen. And the heck to you, we're not voting you another cent, right? And, so it's more appointing a group of people who believe in this, and we'll go out, and each one gets 10 friends, and each of those gets 10 friends, and they all get committed
Building
to
a
it.
consensus.
And then they show up at the, you know, they all show up for the town meeting, and they don't alienate everybody either. It's not that they treat people who are against it as stupid. You know, you can't do that. You have to let everybody have their say, but just get enough people who see the legitimacy and the benefit of doing something that has a long-term positive effect for the town and getting it voted. But as I say, 90% of it is organizing the positive people. Anyway, that's my view for what it's worth.
I have a question for Mrs. Schwall. I'm gonna go off the list here too, because it's something that you had mentioned in your opening statements that piqued my interest. You'd mentioned that you had taken the town records and consolidated them from 12 locations to 3 and digitized them. So my question involves basically protection of that data, the privacy of that data. What steps have you taken or has the town taken to make sure that the town records are securely maintained, both digital and physical access?
Thank you for asking. We hired King Information Systems to come in, and they're experts at knowing the retention schedule for all of our documents. They went through everything and had the secure items that need to be maintained forever are all in the vault. And the vault is temperature and humidity protected. And there are 3 different doors to get into that vault. So those records are all protected. We do have all of our older documents that go back to 1633, I believe, on microfilm. So we do have that as well. Right now, the one copy was supposed to be up at the state and one was here. The state didn't have any room, so they sent it back. So we are going to be locating that elsewhere. I would like to put it on the work with the IT committee, which I'm also a member of, and get that information on our server so it's backed up in 5 different locations across the country. And that's where we're moving with all the digital records. We're having them scanned and available as a PDF, a searchable PDF, if it's typewritten, and get as much as we can up on the website and the server so it's access for the people in town. I'm also working with the library and the Carpenter Museum and Lindy McMullen from the Trim Room, and we're working with the state on a digitization program. And I attended a workshop with them. It's called digitalcommonwealth.org if you want to go there. And Rehoboth is going to be one of those protecting our records up there as well. So they're protected electronically and paper copies as well.
Yeah, good to know. Yeah, I'll I'll ask another question to Mr. Perry. I really like the first question that Leslie asked. So, what are the biggest opportunities you see in Rehoboth, and what are your plans to make them a reality?
Opportunities, not problems, right? I think, I don't know if it's an opportunity, I think it's a lifestyle. And everybody, a lot of people have had the opportunity to enjoy this lifestyle, and I have too, is to keep that up and still supply the services and the amenities people need. So there's a quality of life in Rehoboth that is envied by many surrounding towns. And when I ran as selectman a couple of years ago, well, it wasn't a year ago, that was one thing, is to keep the rural character of town, which I think is probably its biggest single asset, and the neighborly people, but also maintain that quality of service that people need to maintain the town. The town can't fall into disarray. So I think our biggest asset is the quality of life, but our biggest problem is financing that quality of life. And we're going to be a little innovative on that. And we all have vehicles, and we all patch them to a certain point. But sooner or later, you've got to get a new vehicle. It's just only, and if you have a fleet, you have to rotate it. And we're in the same situation now in town, where our infrastructure is a series of Band-Aids, and it's gonna hit reality sooner or later that we have to replace. And it's not gonna be an OSHA violation or anything else. It's just the building's gonna fall down. Not literally, but that's what's happening. And while we do have this quality of life, people are very complacent with it. They feel that I'm doing fine in my little corner. I want to be left alone. My street got plowed. The school bus got down. Everybody's happy, but they don't quite realize the structure, the support that is behind that quality of life. And we have to get people to recognize that and what it takes to maintain it. And the biggest thing is financing.
Thank you.
Like a politician, I probably barely hit on your question.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
So I would like to ask Mr. Cute another question. Why are you running for town moderator?
Pure and simple, Leslie, I like the job. I think that one thing that's always impressed me about this town is that people with all kinds of talents and interests step up, and they do the things that are necessary to, whether it's a town sports program or whatever the case is, people step up, and that's why the town runs the way that it does. As I've said before, I had the best job in the world for preparing me to be town moderator. Being a classroom teacher for 35 years was great on-the-job training for going in and running a meeting where you might have 300, 400, 500 people, and just trying to make sure that expectations are clear and people follow procedures. I got a lot from classroom teaching that really helped me to do that. And pure and simple, it's my way to do my part to help this town go. And as I said, some people came to me in 2007. I thought about it a little bit. I said, okay, I said, this is something I think I'd like to do if I could get elected. I was fortunate enough to get elected. There was an area that needed improvement. I think that I played a role. My town clerk, and most importantly, the people that were at that meeting, we all played a role in improving that. And as I said, that's my way of doing my part as a citizen in this town to making this town go. And that's why I just like it. I enjoy it.
Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Bertozzi, I have one for you. So you're on the planning board, you're running for re-election on the planning board, and a lot of folks in town think the planning board, maybe if they haven't been before them before, it's a committee that plans what the town's going to do. So I'm going to play on that and ask you, 20 years from now, what do you think the vision of Rehoboth would be? I mean, where do you see us 20 years from now? Do you see it as the same rural community, bedroom community, or do you think there might be a little bit more opportunity for business on some of our central areas? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Well, that's a
And you might be retired by then, who knows, so you won't have to worry too much about it. But
20 years from now.
Yeah, 20 years, yeah.
I'm afraid I won't be here, but there will be a lot of people who will. And, you know, we did do another version of a town plan a few years back, and it's, of course, languishing on a shelf, the way they all seem to. So I think that what I'm going to say is just my own opinion.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm not speaking for the planning board. So if I had my druthers, what I would like to see is a town that would be like Lincoln, Massachusetts. Now, for planners, the town of Lincoln, Massachusetts is a model. And I remember when I first went on the planning board over 30 years ago, there was a little book out about how they had taken a town that was sort of a rural town, like ours, and had a group of the town leaders. And when I say leaders, I don't mean politicians as much as I mean people who were looked up to, like Otis Dyer, for example, led, and through their own example and putting their money where their mouth was and using their properties, came up with a system of conservation restrictions on property that should be conserved, a lot of trails that the townspeople could use for bicycling and hiking and so forth. And they allowed some commercial development that was appropriate and harmonious. They even have a shopping center. But it doesn't look like shopping centers in Pawtucket on Newport Avenue. Not at all. So that's sort of a model for Massachusetts that is not far from us. And so it isn't everybody just having their own acreage and green space. I mean, when I came here, my wife and her friend had horses. They could ride all the way across town. Your father would remember that, I'm sure. So everything was open, and it was a much more open kind of community. And of course, we don't have that, but still, I do think we have a sense of community, and we have been able to protect some properties of people granting conservation restrictions, and we have the Community Preservation Committee, sure, and the town voted money, significant money, to help that, and there are other agencies that with the state where grants can be obtained. If we just all work together in that direction, we can keep this a beautiful town. That's what I'd like to see.
Could I just follow up? Do you think that the model that we're following now, with the 60,000 square foot lot for each individual house, and the zoning that promotes that, is really the scheme we want to follow?
No, I don't think it's sufficient. What I really worry about is water.
Yes.
You know, because I've been looking into this a bit, I've met with people on our water authority, and they're concerned also, but trying to find out how much water there is under the ground here, and where it's going, what direction it's going, and what's replenishing it, and whether it's being replenished, are very difficult questions, but that need to be addressed and followed up on. But I don't think 60,000 square feet is going to do it. I mean, we're lucky, and we've got all these wetlands, and the Conservation Commission, I think, has been very conscientious in trying to protect the wetlands. That means protecting our water that we all drink. But if we just keep chopping up 60,000 square foot lots and chop up the whole town that way, I think we're going to have serious water problems.
Thank you.
One more for Mr. Schwall, and one more for Mr. Perry, and then we'll go to closing. So, a question for Mrs. Schwall. Sort of, I guess, playing off of this theme of thinking out into the future, 10 or 20 years, because a lot of what's already been discussed tonight is you know, the need for growth and revenue to support the town. So what ideas do you have to increase revenue in town? Not, you know, not just by adding a tax tomorrow, but a long-term sustainable growth that could bring revenue to Rehoboth in the long term.
That's not really my forte. My husband and daughter are the finance people, but personally.
Yeah, think about it in the role, I guess in your current role, I mean, you're involved in the town, so you see the comings and goings, so if you have any ideas on that.
There's a lot of people that are passionate about different areas, the schools and CPC. If people could, on their taxes, opt in for an additional amount, then you could satisfy those people that wanted more money to go to the schools. You could satisfy the people that wanted more money for open space. And it's anonymous, nobody needs to know, but things get funded more easily because there's more money in the pot.
With that idea, would that be a general fund, or would they actually be allocating extra funds to open space?
I would like to
specifically to schools?
See them be able to choose where they want their money to go.
Interesting.
Personally.
Yeah.
I don't know if Beacon Hill would agree with that, but it's a nice idea.
And so my question is for Mr. Berry. This is a two-part question. You ready?
Yeah.
Have you ever had to deal with town boards in the past, and what was your experience? And then, have you ever had to go before the conservation board, and how was that?
Well, that's easy. I haven't had to deal with them as a homeowner. I've had to deal with them as selectmen. They've been fine, they've been great, good boards. Now, have I been before conservation, how did I deal with them? Before I was selectman, I was the chairman of conservation. I got along with them very well. You didn't see that one coming, did you? No, I was involved.
I didn't know, I'm sorry.
That's what I find. Actually, I was hoping for easy questions, they're really easy. I was on conservation in Attleboro for 14 years before I came to Rehoboth 6 years ago. Then after 1 year living in Rehoboth, couldn't stay away from boards, and I got on the Conservation Commission, became chairman for a couple of years. It's a great board to work with, right? Even from the outside, looking in now, they're very conscious, they're human beings, and I was gonna get up the other night and give a little speech as selectman, and Mr. Bertozzi knows this, there's a horrible subdivision going in on Tremont Street. And they went through conservation because there wasn't any conservation issues, but it's in planning board now. And I watched the planning board meeting, and they very elegantly explained to the abutters why they've got what they got coming down the pike, and how the zoning board made the right decision in denying this, to have it rezoned under as a retreat, not as a retreat lot. And the board was bent over backwards to explain this to the abutters, because the abutters, of course, don't want 4 houses on 7 acres, which is a burden to the town. It's a new road we have to plow and maintain, and it's 2.3 kids per house and all that stuff. But here again, too, the board went backwards to work with the abutters to make the area conducive to what everything else is around there. And the point I'm trying to drive at is part of the responsibility of the abutters and the citizens, not just the boards, to dictate how things are done. There has to be an involvement. And Mr. Bertozzi can probably explain this to you, or will verify this. If the neighbors had just sold 5,000 square feet, they would have 1 house instead of 4, and they wouldn't have a lousy subdivision there. When I say lousy, it's just it's not in with the character of that general area. So I think your boards here, planning board, conservation, go backwards to be helpful to everybody, guide them through the process without being, in some towns, I don't, maybe the wrong word is vindictive or something, but they get drunk with power. Not here, I don't see that. I see them being very open and helpful through the whole process.
Thank you, Mr. Berry.
So now we're going to give each of you a chance to make a closing remark. We're running probably a little behind schedule, so let's go with a minute and a half on the closing remark, and we'll start with Mr. Perry.
Well, like I said before, this is a job you usually don't run for. I'm running for it because nobody else is. And I figure I fit the bill, I've got the experience. I enjoy it, even though I could put more into it than I do, but it's not necessary because our water quality is taken care of pretty much by Conservation and Planning Board. All their stormwater outflows and everything that we've already looked at. But in the meantime, if anybody has any questions and wants to use me, contact me through Town Hall. If they have a question on their own property, runoff, or a quality of water coming off the street or something, that's what I'm there for. So it's not just to fill out a form. I enjoy going out, seeing people, walking through the property, and answering any questions they have. So if I'm going to be working for you, look me up and use me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Schwall?
Thank you all for the opportunity to speak this evening and to educate our voters. I absolutely love my job, and I look forward to doing it many, many more years if you will vote me into office. I am looking forward to becoming Town Clerk Certified, which is a 3-year program, and bringing new innovative ways to the town that I can learn from my peers. And I just wanted to remind everybody that even though the elections are uncontested, everybody needs to vote. And the election is April 6th, Monday, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Absentee ballots can be gotten at Town Hall. They're available right now up until Good Friday at noontime, and I will be there. So please visit and vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bertozzi?
Thank you. Thanks again to the association for having me. I want to say that it really is an honor for me to be sitting here with 3 of the best public servants I have ever seen, and I'm 73 years old, and I've always taken an interest in what goes on in government.
Add yourself to that.
No, they really are fantastic, and I feel really honored to be sitting here with them. So, when I first moved to Rehoboth, I wanted to learn more about the town. So I went up to a planning board meeting, because all the meetings are public, and any member of the public can attend. And it seems that I was the only member of the public who was there. So Jay Crandall was the chairman of the planning board at the time, and after the meeting was over, he came up to me and said, you know, who are you, and are you new to town, and so on, and I explained. And he said, well, you know what, you sound like you're really interested. You came all the way up to this meeting, and we've got an opening on the planning board. So anyway, that's all it takes, you know, show some interest. We really, speaking for the planning board, you know, there comes a time when there are openings. There are openings on the board. I'm not going to be here another 30 years, I'll tell you that. And I really think it's important for people who have a genuine interest, and you don't have to be a lawyer, you don't have to be an engineer, you don't have to be an architect. Some of our best members have been mothers and housewives, and I'm not kidding, I'm not kidding. So I urge people who are out there who listen to this about problems and opportunities and who think they would be interested in making a contribution, look into joining one of the boards, please, because we can really use your interest and energy. Thanks.
Thank you. And Mr. Q?
Thanks again to the RBA for giving us the opportunity to spend a few minutes with the voters of Rehoboth tonight. It's just mind-boggling to me, as I said earlier, to think that I'm here tonight on the verge of being elected to my 9th term as town moderator. It only seems like a couple of eye blinks ago that it was 2007. We had a town where acrimony was widespread, and today I think we have relative harmony. We had a town meeting where people yelled out disparaging remarks, they booed, there was all kinds of disruptive behavior, and I think that I can stand here and confidently say that we have a town meeting today where a citizen knows that he or she, regardless of where they stand in an issue, can go up and in a civil, orderly environment can express their opinions on the issues that affect us in the town. And that's my bottom line. It was my platform in 2007. It's my platform in 2015. As long as I'm your town moderator, all I will try to do is to make sure that our town meetings will be run in an orderly, civil fashion. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank all of the voters in Rehoboth that have come to the town meeting since I've been moderator for the job that you've done in more than meeting the expectations that I set down at the beginning of every meeting. So thanks again to the RBA. To echo Mrs. Schwall's comments from a few seconds ago, even though we don't have any real contested races on this ballot, show your confidence in us as people doing the job in town government and give us your vote on election day. And thanks for, again, the opportunity to be here tonight.
Okay, thank you. That completes our first panel, and we're going to take a short break so we can kind of carry Jerry Schwall up to the front table. But when we do come back, we are going to have Ms. Pimentel for Board of Selectmen, Mr. Schwall for Board of Selectmen, Mr. Katzif for School Committee, and Mrs. Cooper for School Committee. We'll be back in 5 or 10 minutes.